Perfect. As long as they're two easygoing parents like yourselves. Okay. We are learning Leila Nishmas Mendel Mariam Bas Kamen Reuven and Shamash Ben Aliyah. We are going to talk about sterility today. What a fun topic. But an important topic. A lot of halachic ramifications, both for animals, for people. But first, we're going to go through a whole bunch of different. First part of the Gemara is going to be we're going to run through pretty quickly, just a discussion of all the different, what do I call it, like recipes for these different types of sterility potions. So the Mishnah said, V'chos ikar. The Mishnah talked about a potion of sterility. Okay, so it's all the way 110, if you're following in the Aramaic, it's by the two dots. In the art scroll, it's 110a3, and the bottom of the first column. Chosi karn, a potion of sterility. Asking Gemara, my kosi karn, what is it made up of? Amar Rav Yochanan, laisi maskal zuza koma Alexandra. A person should bring a zuz weight of Alexandria gum. Umaskal zuza gavia gila, and a zuz weight of alum. I don't know what that is. Umaskal zuza kurkuma rishka, and a zuz weight of garden saffron. Lishcha kinu badadadi, and grind them all together. Lizava. If the purpose of doing this is not for sterility, but rather to heal azava, meaning someone who is bleeding excessively, tilasa b'chamra, all then different ways of understanding these words, but one way of understanding is that they should drink 3 cups of this mixture mixed with wine. Velomi akra, and will not make her sterile. Lirikona, however, if you're using it to heal jaundice, train b'shechra, I know I'm not translating it the way they do over here, then drink 2 of these cups mixed with beer, umi akar, and it will make the patient sterile. Okay, so we're going to come back to this question of, are you allowed to make yourself sterile, which Gemara is going to get back to, but in the meantime, we're just talking about the ingredients themselves, the recipes for medicinal purposes. So 3 cups with wine help a person who has too much blood, bleeding too much, and 2 cups is mixed with beer is helpful for jaundice, but it also makes the patient sterile. Says the Gemara. The Gemara goes for lists a bunch of cures for a zava. Okay, l'zava tlas b'chamra v'lo mi'akra. Again, we're going to mention the one we mentioned earlier. The ideal potion, ideal mixture is to have all these 3 ingredients that were mentioned above, mix them with wine, and it will not make her sterile. V'lo lysitz lasa. A person should bring 3 kefize shamke parsai. 3 kefize. It's a vessel that holds 3 lugin of Persian onions. V'nishlok bechamra, boil them in wine. V'nashkia, and give the potion to her to drink. V'nemala, and you should say kum mizovech, stop your flow. V'lo, and if that remedy is not available to you, lo sve aparshas drachim, she should sit at the crossroad. V'linkita kas dechamra bidan, have her hold a cup of wine in her hand. V'lesi inish me'achora, someone should come from behind her. V'liv asa, and should scare her. V'lemala, kum mezovech, stop your flow. Okay, these are different, therapeutic methods that were discussed in the ancient world. Vilo, laisi buna de chamono, she should bring a fistful of cumin, ubuna de marika, a fistful of saffron, ubuna de shavlilasa, and a fistful of fenugreek, evenishlok bechamra, boil them all in wine, venashkia, she should drink them, venemala, and a person should say to her, kum mezovech, stop your flow. Vilo, laisi shitin shie didana, a person should bring 60 clay seals of a barrel, and they should be soaked in water, so become all mushy, all soft. Vilishpaya, and smear them on her. V'leimala, and say to her, kum mizovech, stop your flow. V'lo, laite pastina. Person should bring pastina. Pastina is a type of herb. Okay, v'lishlok b'chamer, boil it in wine. V'lishpiyeh, and smear it. V'neimale, kum mizovech, and stop your flowing. V'lo, laise charnuga dehingasa ramisa. Person should bring charnuga, also type of herb, which is next to or grows next to a certain romisa bush. Okay, it's a type of thorn bush. Velikli, burn it. Velispa b'shachke dechitan b'kaita, and take its ashes in linen rags in the summer, and she should wear it. Okay, so she should wear it within linen rags. V'shachake de'amar gufna b'sisvasa, or in cotton rags in the winter, and that is a remedy. Vilo, another one. Lichra sheva beri, she should dig 7 holes. Velikli b'husha bishta yalda de'arla, and burn a branch of a young arla vine in each of them. Okay, so basically during the first 3 years, you're not allowed to have any benefit from a tree, from a fruit-bearing tree. It's called arla, and so you take a vine from within the first 3 years, and you burn it in this hole. If Velinkita kasa de chamra bida, she should hold a cup of wine in her hand. Velokma meha, she should start off in one hole, stand her up from one hole. Velos vaha, and then she should sit over another hole. Velokma meha, then stand her up from that hole. Velos vaha, and sit her over in the next hole. And va'akal chad v'chad, and each time she stands up, lemala, one should say, kumi zovek, stop your flow. Vilo, another remedy. Laisi smida, she should bring fine flour. Velischa mipag l'tatai, she should smear it over the lower half of her body. V'lemala, kumi zovek, and someone should say, stop your flow. Vilo, if not, laisi be'asa d'na'im misa, she should bring an ostrich egg, v'likli, and burn it, v'lisba b'shachke dechitana b'kaita, take the ashes in linen rags in the summer, v'shachke de'amar gufna b'sisvasa, or in cotton rags in the winter. V'lo, liftach lachavis decham lishma, a barrel of wine should be open for her sake. What does that mean? That means she should drink a lot of wine. That's the easiest method. Drink a lot of wine. Okay. Bottom line is, all these are different methods that would seem to stop a woman from having too much blood. V'lo, linkat sa'arta de mishtakchas b'chfusa dechudna chivara. She should take a barley grain that was found in the dung of a white mule. Okay, inakta, someone should find a barley grain that was found in the dung of a white mule. Inakta chad yom, if she holds it for 1 day, paska tre yomi, her flow will stop for 2 days. Vinakta tre yom, if she holds it for 2 days, paska tlasa yomi, the flow will stop for 3 days. Vinakta tlosa yomi, if she holds it for 3 days, paska la'olam, the flow will stop forever. Okay. Again, this is I'm going to repeat again that these were methods that were used in the ancient world. Some do have like a whole esoteric read of all these types of things. Others understand this is just medicine that was used in the ancient world, and the Gemara cares about our health and therefore is mentioning it. Okay.
It seems like it runs a little bit contrary to what the Torah says in terms of you have these incantations that you're saying after. It's kind of like a witchcrafty type of idea.
So you have to define. So it's a major discussion. What exactly define the fact that there's speech being used? It's not so simple that we roll our eyes at these types of things, and as do I, frankly. But the notion of speech being part of a healing process doesn't, by definition, make it witchcraft. Meaning, witchcraft, again, big discussion, but basically is using things which have not been proven, that are invoking evil spirits, spirits of impurity. And over here, these are medicinal things. The fact that there is a statement being made, the speech being used as part of the therapeutic process, not so simple. Like they talk about it for like plants, like talking to a plant. There's been a lot of studies now that actually it does help. It looks weird, but it does help. It does help, right? So it does, the fact that a person is saying stop your flow does not necessarily mean that it is witchcraft by definition. Witchcraft is specifically when a person is invoking, Ruach HaTumah, Satan, etc., etc. Okay. L'yirekona train b'shichra u'meyakar. Okay. The Gemara said above that for healing jaundice, what the person should do is drink 2 cups. Okay, one of the ways of reading this, the way they translate, is 2 of the 3 ingredients. Okay, mix it, or it's read as 2 cups, and it will make the patient sterile. V'lo. Okay, if that's not available to remedy the jaundice, laise reish shibuta de milcha. One should take the head of a salted shibuta. That's a fish, type of fish. V'lishlok b'shichra, boil it in beer. V'lishtei, she should drink it. V'lo laise monina de kamse, she should bring juice of locust. V'leka monina de kamse, if she doesn't have the juice of locust available, laise monina de nakiri, she should bring juice of nakiri. Nakiri is a small bird. Take it to the bathhouse. The bathhouse is very hot. V'lishbia, and smear the juice on the person who is suffering from jaundice. If there's no bathhouse available, stand in a different hot place between the oven and a wall. Okay, so basically you have an oven, you have a wall next to it, that's a place where the heat gets captured, and smear the juice there. Amar Rav Yochanan harosish yichamemenu. Person who wants to warm the patient, should wrap him well in his sheet. The patient sheet, that's another way. If you don't have like any source of heat, just wrap the person in their own sheet. Rav Acha bar Yosef Chashbei, he was suffering from jaundice. Avalei Rav Kahana, Rav Kahana performed the above treatment on him, and he was cured. V'lo, and if that's not available, laise tlasa kefize tamre parsiyasa. Person should take 3 kefize. That is a vessel. We saw this earlier. A vessel that holds 3 lugin of Persian dates. Utlasa kefize zekirat in strufe, and 3 kefize. Again, this thing that holds 3 lug of wax that is dripped from an overflowing honeycomb. Utlasa kefize ahala tolana, and 3 kefize of red aloe. V'lishokina b'shichra, drink it. Boil them in beer. V'lishtei, and the patient should drink it. V'lo laise ila bar chamar. Person should bring a foal of a donkey, right, the child. V'ligalach mitzias the ratio. Person should shave the middle of the patient's head. V'lishbek le demame apuse, and draw blood from the foal's forehead. V'losle areshe, and put the blood on the shaved part of the patient's head. V'lizar me'enid lo masu v'lisami luhu, and the blood should not get into the patient's eyes because it could have a negative effect on his or her vision. V'lo laise reish devarcha demanach lechivsha. A person should bring a ram's head that has been pickled. V'lishlok b'shichra, boil it in beer. V'lishtei, and then the patient should drink it. V'lo, and if you don't have that, laise devar acher chudrana. Person should bring something else. Something else is a reference to a pig. They don't even say pig. The Gemara was very careful not to say the word pig. It seems as something which is like the extreme of tumah. So they would call it a davar acher. Okay, so a davar acher that is special. speckled. V'likare, tear it open. V'losve alibe, and place the pig on the patient's heart. V'lo, laisi karte mi kav tusa demeshri, a person should bring leeks from the middle of the row. Okay, so basically you have a leek field, take the middle ones. There was an Arab who was suffering from jaundice. He said to his gardener, take my cloak, and give me a row of leeks. The gardener gave him the row of leeks. He ate it. Oshlan gilimach, lend me your cloak. Va'ange be kali, and I was sleeping in it a little bit. He wrapped himself in his cloak and slept in it. Kad ichamam v'kam, when he came hot, he got up. Nafal porta mine, the cloak itself fell away. Like it caused the body to heat to such an extent that the cloak itself started to disintegrate. Okay, now we go back to, and here's going to be a very relevant halachic discussion. The Mishnah said, the Gemara above quoted a statement that said for healing jaundice, a person uses 2 of the 3 ingredients or two cups of this thing, mix it with beer, and it'll make the patient sterile. Ask the Gemara, Mishari, are you allowed to make a person sterile? Are you allowed to make a person no longer have children? The Gemara says, Vatanya, we learned in the Brisa, from where do we know that castration is forbidden in the case of a person? Tamalomar, lo sa'asu. The pasuk says that in your land you shall not do this. Okay, that now although the reference is to an animal, bachem lo se'asu. The way the pasuk is read is eretz bachem lo se'asu. That not only is it forbidden to do for animals, but bachem, it's also forbidden to make oneself sterile. Divrei Rabbi Chanina. So we see from here that it is forbidden to make both an animal and a person sterile. So says the Gemara's attempted answer, we're going to reject this, is Hani mili hecha dekamechaven, hacha me'atzmahu. The Gemara first tries to distinguish by saying that when is it forbidden? It's forbidden when you are manipulating or breaking the actual organs. Okay, so there are different ways to make a person sterile, but one of the ways of making the person sterile, or one of a bunch of methods, is by breaking, whether internally or externally, the organs that reproduce. So you do something, you manipulate them, as opposed to what our Mishnah is talking about, or the Brisa is talking about, which is drinking a potion, and then it happens to them. Maybe the Gemara attempts to say that that's what's allowed. You're allowed to drink a potion, you're allowed to drink something that's going to make you sterile, but to go ahead and to break the organs, that is not allowed. Okay, so the Gemara tries to bring a raya for this, a proof to this. Now we're towards the bottom of the page, 110b3. Rav Yochanan said, Harotza sheyisaris tarnagol. A person wants to castrate a rooster, yitel karbolto, should remove its crest. Okay, so if you want to make a rooster sterile, you remove its crest. The crest is right what it has on its chest. Umistaris me'alav, and becomes castrated on its own. So that would seem to be a proof that now the crest is not its reproductive organ, but nonetheless you are. So what do you see from Rabbi Yochanan? You're allowed to remove the crest, and by removing the crest, it causes the animal to be castrated. So this would be similar to drinking a potion, a drink or a pill that causes castration. But the Gemara says, no, that's not the right interpretation. Rav Ashi says, Remus ruchahu dinakitale. The reason that it causes the rooster to become castrated is not that it's actually castrated, it's that a rooster takes pride in its crest. And through its crest, if you ever see these like animal, these I don't know, these National Geographic movies, you see the animal in its attempt to mate. What it normally does, it shows off. The male normally shows off, sometimes the female, but the male oftentimes shows off, and then it attracts a female, and then they mate. So the crest is basically, it shows its colors, right? Some animals show their colors, it shows its crest, it walks around boasting, strutting in front of the females, and then it mates. When it's missing its crest, it no longer has that swagger, and that's why it stops procreating, but it does. But theoretically, it's not that it's not sterile. It's not that it's it's not that it's impotent. It's that it just is embarrassed now, and therefore it doesn't procreate. But you didn't actually castrate the animal. You just embarrassed the rooster, right? So Rav Yochanan's proof, Rav Ashi is saying, is not a good proof. You didn't actually castrate the animal in any way. So the Gemara says, oh, you know what we're talking about? Ela Bisaris. With the Mishnah, the Brisa that allowed you to drink this sterile juice, this sterile potion, is talking about a person who is already castrated, and therefore it's allowed. Okay, just parenthetically, the word saris, you found in the Torah, has another meaning. The word saris has the meaning of, like you see this in Megillas Esther. You see this potentially in the story of Potiphar. Saris is someone who works for the king. Right? So as you find the term, Sris Paro is someone who works for the king. The commentator, the Mefarshim, points out that the reason that term is used is because it was so common for the kings to go ahead and castrate everyone who worked for them. All the ministers were castrated because oftentimes there was a harem, and there are many opportunities for one of the ministers to go ahead and cohabit with the king's wives, or one of his women from the harem, and therefore they would go ahead and castrate all of his ministers to the point that you would call a minister a castrated person, whether or not they're castrated, right? So there's a big discussion. Was Potiphar castrated or not? It was a big discussion in the Midrashim. Why? Because he's called a Sris Paro. But it could mean that it's just the term that we use for anyone in their palace. Okay? Crazy. Okay, fine. Fine. Bottom line is, the Gemara tries to say that we're talking about someone who's castrated, and we're castrating a second time. Meaning, let's say, they were partially castrated, they're sterile now, but a person goes and they finish the job. So it says the Gemara, that's not true. You can't do that. Rav Chia bar Abba Amar Rav Yochanan. We're now on top of Kuf Yud Aleph. Kol modim, everyone agrees, b'mechametz acher mechametz shu chayav. Shneimar lo se'afe chametz lo se'aseh chametz. Okay, so this first part of the Bryce is not relevant to our discussion, but basically there is a halacha that in the base of Migdash you are not allowed to have any chametz. Chametz was not allowed to be brought at any of the karbanos, and if a person brings a karban that's chametz, and then a person brings it a second time, you're going to be chayiv. That's not our issue. But then they continue, b'misares acher misares, that you're also not allowed to castrate a person after another person has castrated him. Shu chayiv, you're going to be chayiv. So even castration after castration is aser, shenemar, uma'uch b'chasus v'natuk b'charos. The pasuk talks about someone whose testicles are squeezed, crushed, detached, or cut.
That's the project I was wondering why they weren't bringing before.
Good. So it says the Gemara, Imal Karos Chayiv, you're going to be Chayiv for cutting them. Al Naslik L'Kol Shekain. Naslik means completely severed. Cutting means they have an incision. Natuk means they're completely severed. So of course, so the Gemara says, once you say cut, why do you have to say detached? It's obvious. If you can't cut, which is a partial incision, partial cut, for sure you can't completely detached. Elahavi notik acher kares to teach you that if a person goes ahead and detaches testicles after they have been cut, shuchayiv, you are going to be liable. So you see that krisos after krisos, cutting after cutting, you're going to be chayiv. So Gemara now tries to suggest another answer. The ella bizakein. Maybe we're talking about an old man who can no longer father children. He's allowed to drink this potion that causes sterility. The Gemara says that can't be. From Rav Yochanan, narusi. He's speaking about a different cure, and he says this drink, this thing that he drank, it brought him back to the potency of youth. In other words, we have scenarios where a man could be quite old and still be able to father children. Right? In Eretz Yisrael, there was a famous rabbi who just had a child. He was when it's like 80s or whatever it is. Okay, so bottom line is, such a thing could happen. So Gemara says, Ela Isha. So maybe we're talking about a woman. So for a man to go back to being to being able to be potent, to lose, if who is impotent is now able to have father children, that's possible. For a woman, that is what we'll call miraculous, and therefore maybe it's for a woman. So says the Gemara that doesn't work for everyone. Rabbi Yochanan Mabruka to Amar al shneimu omer vevarcho sam elakim v'yomer lehem elakim pruruvu. Rabbi Yochanan Mabruka holds that there's an obligation for both men and women to be fruitful and multiply. In which case, therefore, it can't be. Oh, sorry, I jumped ahead. So the Gemara said El B'Isha. Sorry, when the Gemara said El B'Isha, the Gemara is saying that the Gemara's assumption would be no issue whatsoever, or no Torah prohibition, I should say, to castrate a woman. There would still be a rabbinic prohibition, okay, but no Torah prohibition. So the Gemara says, but according to Rabbi Yochanan Baruch holds that there is a mitzvah pruruvu both for men and women. Right? There have the reason that there is a possibility that it would be permitted for women is due to the fact that women, according to most, don't have the same obligation about having children, and therefore only men have the mitzvah. Women do not, and therefore there's a havamina, or at least according to one opinion, it would be mutter, at least midoraisa to drink this potion of sterility. So the Gemara says, Michael, according to Rav Yochanan Mabroka, holds that men and women have the same obligation of having children. Michael, what could you say? Bizakena. We're talking about an old woman who would therefore be allowed. Inami bakara, or a barren woman who also it would be allowed. So bottom line is, let's just quickly review and talk about some practical halachos over here. Bottom line is that according to the vast majority, according to all mefarsh, all poskim, to cause a man to become sterile in any way is asur midoraisa. According to most rishonim, making a woman sterile is going to be asur midrabanan. The same for animals. People don't realize this, right? Remember, one of the primary psukim we quoted was for animals. People think, oh, it's an animal, it's fine. It's not true, and this comes up a lot. People oftentimes have an animal, they want to go ahead and neuter or spay the animal. It's really not so simple. Okay, so when it comes to animals, right? So it depends. If it's a female animal, then the notion of doing it without physical manipulation, you do it through like medication or things of that nature, the poskim are makel about. But if you want to go ahead and do it physically, physical manipulation, it is forbidden. And for males, either one would be forbidden. The only way to do so is a bit of a complicated process where you sell your animal to a non-Jew, and then the non-Jew could go ahead and do it for you. Not do it for you, it's their animal, etc., etc. It's a little bit complicated. The poskim don't love it. If you're going to buy an animal that's already been neutered or spayed, and that would save you a lot of halachic issues. But let's talk about for people. So a vasectomy, male sterilization is always going to be usher, okay, across the board. Sometimes you have a scenario where perhaps a woman getting impregnated is going to be dangerous for her. So what are the things to do? So a vasectomy is not one of the options. A man is not allowed to go through a vasectomy, hysterectomy. So there, just generally speaking, would be forbidden in a scenario where there is some danger involved, whether it's pregnancy, sometimes whatever, there are different, or it's significant pain, then there is what to talk about. The person has to ask a local Orthodox rabbi, but there is more wiggle room in terms of doing a hysterectomy in particular scenarios. Sometimes a person, I'm old, I can do a hysterectomy. It's not so simple. Again, as we saw over here, even if a person's old, it's not so simple to say that across the board a person can go ahead and do a hysterectomy. Maybe if there's other forms of sterilization, which I don't think are available for people at this point, there might be more allowance for women. But just to go ahead and do a hysterectomy is not allowed, again, unless there are extenuating circumstances. Have a great day.
They don't sit by animals.